operation 200 feet from the bank doing in the river? What is that doing? How?
And he said that is what I'm looking for explanation.
If according to them, your stuff is falling, washing over into the river, why do we have all this vegetation right here that clearly seems to me to be a blockage of any stuff going over?
Yes. And
otherwise, we would have your stuff all here.
And this vegetation is what we encourage. We encourage this. As a matter of fact, I get my guys them to keep grooming that tree because we encourage the vegetation because that is something that we must do according to the planning order for we to mine.
Okay.
We must encourage vegetation. That is what we're doing. That is what we are doing.
Listen, this is very difficult for me to fathom because I am here, my dear people, and I'm seeing this and I'm telling you, I don't see the stuff that Bigger is doing 200 feet away affecting the river. I don't see it coming over into the river because we have all this vegetation around and you can see it too. We're showing it to you.
That is the reason why I'm asking the whole entire nation. I will take the time off to every day to bring to be the tour guide for persons who want to come to America.
Very
just
important.
Like what I'm doing for you today. And I'm so pleased that you are here today. So
and we're happy to be here. This is a part of serving the people. This is what this program is about. We want people to know because you're a common man here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. You're a local investor.
Yes.
And government ought not to be treating the people this way. This has to do with your business, your livelihood, your private property rights that has been given to you by God. Everybody has a right to pursue happiness.
Yes,
you will be affected. Your workers will be affected.
Yeah.
Their families will be affected.
And I'm worried about them because they have family. And most of them have like 3 and 4 persons in each family depending on them.
Oh.
So even we even have a staff of 60. You could say 60 by 4 on average.
Bigger, I'm truly happy that you took the time out to show us all these things, explain to us. And I know it won't be the last time that we will be talking to you and your people here at Bigger Construction because we want Vincentians, all of us, to know and to understand what's happening here. And I join with you in calling you all out to Rabaca. Take the time out, contact Bigger Bigs, come out here, see what's happening, see for yourself and judge for yourself what is going on here. Thank you so much for being on our program.
And thanks for coming, Anisia.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it.
All right. Yes, my dear people, what an eye-opening experience it was for me to be there on site and to be gathering this information for myself. So many things were seen. But before I actually review some of the things that were seen, I want you to now listen to this very short clip of the voice of Senator Julian Francis. These words were said by him during the election campaign in 2010. Yes, sometime around October 2010, he said these words. And I want you to consider the meaning of these words said during the election period, during the election campaign, before this news coming to Bigger Bigs in February, telling him that they were going to now be prohibiting him or stopping him from mining. Take a look, or rather listen to this clip very carefully. Julian Francis.
They're not making sure they vote for NDP for the airport to continue. You know. They're making sure that they work for NDP so that if NDP win, they will get what they want, like Bigger Bigs want to Rabaca.
Did you hear that, my dear people? Now, we hear today that Bigger Bigs or Mr. Samuel is making a political issue of this matter. But who's the one who made it a political issue? When mention was made, a claim was made that Bigger Bigs is trying to own Rabaca by the senator, by a politician during the election campaign. So the question we have to ask ourselves, is this some sort of attempt to shut down and get at Mr. Samuel? Is this not political victimization by members in the government, whereas at the same time they are claiming that it has to do with alleged environmentally ill practices that Mr. Samuel is practicing? I mean, you saw it in the video that you looked at with the interview and the little site visit that I did with Mr. Samuel. We saw, for example, that the whole claim that Bigger's operations was causing his stuff to fall into the Lady Jane River and then to affect the bridge down below. We saw that this could not be so because between his operation and the river, by the bank there where his land stops, we saw all this vegetation. We showed it to you. And if his stuff was coming over, it would have had to fill up the area where the vegetation is, but there's vegetation there. So we seriously question that claim. Then we saw also that Bigger showed what he's doing to correct what seems to be a minor issue where he has one drum sitting on two empty drums, and he says that when the wind blows from time to time, you get a little of the oil falling on the ground just around the drum. And this thing was highlighted by the Searchlight newspaper, saying and claiming, based on their reporting, that this was a big threat to the environment right on Bigger's land. But we saw drums, more drums, on the area where the Taiwanese are operating, where the JESCO is operating in the Rabaca River, and no mention was made and no visual images or photos was taken by the Searchlight to show that JESCO had similar drums set aside. But more than that, Mr. Samuel has a corrective measure in place, which was explained by him and by his site manager, Mr. Raphael Joseph, for which he's to be congratulated, because he clearly is concerned about the environment and he's doing something to address the issue. But we don't see that being highlighted. This is some serious issues here, my dear people. We're very concerned. Bigger explained that he has 60 employees, and you could multiply that by 4 because they each have at least 4 persons in their household to depend upon them. And these people are going to suffer if Bigger has to stop his operations, which he's being told to do by the authorities. And this is so unfortunate because it means that people will be put on the breadline for what, based on the evidence and based on our investigation, seems not to be a problem at all. So we ask the question here at Serving the People, what really is this? Where is the issue about environmental concern? Is this perhaps an effort to shut down Bigger so that perhaps the state could move in and acquire his property? We are told that 80% of Bigger's entire property still has not yet been mined. He's only mining just about 20% of it so far. So what happens when he's shut down and he stops? What would happen to all of that land there that was bought clearly for the purpose of mining? Will the government then move in, perhaps with some excuse of public purpose, to go and acquire his property and then gain the benefit of what they can do with such property? These are the questions that we seriously ask, because this thing is really eye-opening. There seems to be some heavy-handedness going on here and serious political victimization, serious political agenda, even when we reflect on the comments from Julian Francis in the last election. Don't forget, Bigger was a well-known supporter of the candidate of the New Democratic Party, Mr. Curtis Bowman, in Maracua. And he supported him very strongly and assisted with his campaign. And Curtis was able to make serious impact on that seat, because whereas before Miss Miguel would have won with over 1,000 votes, Curtis, she just won by perhaps about 500 or so, I stand corrected, votes. She won with less votes than before. So is it that they're coming down on Bigger because he politically supported Mr. Bowman of the NDP? Why did Julian Francis have to make the statements he made during the election? These are the things you have to think about, my dear people. And I'm calling upon the business people to support Mr. Samuel or Bigger in his fight. Because today it's Bigger, but tomorrow it could be you. These things ought not to be so. This reminds me of what Chavez does in Venezuela. Government moving with all kind of excuses to acquire people's property, to take over and give more power to the state, while the common man suffers from the infringement of his God-given rights. And these things ought not to be. We don't want the Chavezization of our country that more and more we see the Prime Minister is trying to do. We don't want that at all. We sympathize very much with Mr. Samuel and his workers and their families who would suffer from this decision that has been taken against him, and we hope that he would have much success in fighting it, however he chooses to. Now, I just want to also point out, my dear people, that when I think about this situation, I am mindful to compare it with what is happening with the bills that we will be protesting tomorrow, God willing, in Kingstown. These bills essentially touch and concern your God-given rights and freedoms in as far as they threaten to take away your rights. The amendment to the Criminal Procedure Code threatens to take away, to remove the right to bring a private criminal complaint in the court without having to seek the permission of anybody like the DPP. It takes away that right altogether. It's no longer a private criminal complaint if you have to go to the DPP first. It's no longer that. And that ought not to be so. Also, it gives into the power of the DPP, into the hands of the DPP, a kind of power he didn't have before. A kind of power where he tells you if you can exercise your right or not. But rights don't come from the hands of a man. They come from God, and they are to be protected by the law. And that's what government is supposed to be doing with law. Passing laws to protect the rights and freedoms of the people, not to take them away. Then the Representation of the People's Act, what does that do? It essentially legislates gutter politics, as one person has been heard to say. What it does, It removes the requirement of morality in the characters of politicians and candidates and prospective candidates. It takes away the penalty for evil that could be done by these candidates and tells us we must accept immoral, evil behaving people and people who win elections by these immoral behaviors. And it also takes away the right to a free and fair election from the person who's competing in the election, as well as from you, the voter, because it means you don't have the right anymore to be able to freely vote based on truthful information, but you could be swayed in your decision and how you vote based on errors and lies and false statements that are said. And the people who make those false statements will not be penalized the way the law currently says it should be penalized. This is a terrible, terrible situation for us to find ourselves in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. No government should want to pass laws like that, my dear people. As we wrap up, I just want to remind you of one of the things that was said by parliamentarians who fought against a similar law in 1972. And they, in this case, it was the Labour Party parliamentarians who were speaking against law that was brought by what was known as the junta government. They brought a law to try to secure themselves in parliament. And these Labour Party parliamentarians argued that such laws were wrong. And I've been privileged to get this information from one of our esteemed lawyers, Ms. Kibaka. She provided it to me, and I just want to thank her for it. And I want to say what was said there. I want to quote for you, for example, what was said by one Honourable, his name is the Honourable Sinclair Deacon, and he was a Labour Party parliamentarian. And in the Hansard of 1972, this is what he said, quote, "Woe to a country when it has reached that stage. Woe to a country when legislators for their own benefit can circumvent law and prevent the proper administration of justice. This piece of legislation, Mr. Speaker, honourable members, also tramples the legal principles wherein the executive should at no time whatever try to interfere with the judiciary." End of quote. These are some of the things that were said, because this is what is essentially happening. By their power in parliament, they are abusing their authority to pass laws to interfere with the true role of the judiciary, the courts. The DPP is not a judge. He should not have all of that power. Let the people be able to bring their private criminal complaints. My dear people, this is why you have to come out and protest. And I know Bigger and his staff will be there too, because they see the evil of these bills on top of the evil that is being done to them personally, where their private property right and their right to the pursuit of happiness is being infringed upon by this decision that has been taken by the relevant planning authorities. My dear people, I beg of you, consider what is happening in our country. Remember, it's not like referendum. You don't have a vote. You don't have a direct vote in this matter. But you can certainly come out in your numbers on Thursday, tomorrow, and protest. Show your strength in your numbers and show that your voices and your stance there tomorrow says you don't want these bills to pass in the parliament. Do not be fooled by the laptop computers that are coming in. Do not allow this to be another galvanized lumber cement scenario. Stand up for your rights. Computer or not, galvanized or not, we want the government to respect our rights and not pass laws that will infringe upon those rights. That is what you must say to them tomorrow. Let me thank Bigger once again for the opportunity to investigate and interview him. Let me thank the workers who were there. Let me also say a special thanks to my husband who did the camera work. I'm grateful for the assistance he was able to give. I know he will learn more and we will do greater things in the service of the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And let me also say to you, Vincentians, this is about all of us. It doesn't matter which political party you belong to. This is about the protection of the rights and freedoms of all Vincentians. And I urge you, please, to come out and protest against these bills. Protest against the injustice being done to Bigger. And we'll have more for you soon. Remember, call 1784-528-1015 or write to me, servingthepeople.ab. That's Anissa Batiste, servingthepeople.ab@gmail.com. Until our next program, may God be with you and stand up for your rights and freedoms. Tomorrow, March 3rd, come and protest with us. In Jesus' holy name, I ask you, I beg you. Amen.